This video ranks every brawler in Brawl Stars from worst to best. Meeple is finally here, and it's about time that we drop the greatest Brawl Stars meta tier list on YouTube. Now, just a little disclaimer before the video starts. So just because a brawler is placed one spot above another does not always mean that they're going to be overall stronger than the previous brawler throughout the entire game. It is always going to depend on the comp, matchup, game mode, and map. Instead of raging in the comments about the specific placements, I would focus more on the placements of which tier the brawlers are in for the overall tier list, which is ultimately more important. Doug is still the worst brawler in the entire game. Doug is undisputedly such an unbelievably bad brawler and has been for such a long time. He needs a significant buff or rework in order to get him out of the F tier in general. Doug needs a hypercharge. Bonnie is definitely still one of the weakest brawlers in the game. She is considered to be one of the worst marksmen in the game since she moves so incredibly slow and can't really do anything in this meta. The only good thing she can do is jump onto weak enemies or squishy brawlers to burst them down within an instant. Miko is still one of the worst brawlers in the game as well. Miko is great to counter brawlers like Thors or sharpshooters since they will have a difficult time hitting their shots onto Miko. But even the best players can time the shots and still hit Miko after he lands on top of them. Miko's reload speed is probably the biggest thing hurting his chances of being meta. Charlie's fallen off so hard since her huge nerfs a while ago. She doesn't deal a lot of damage, her hypercharge is extremely underwhelming, and her spiders are basically useless. The only thing she has going for her is that her cocoon is still annoying to deal with, but it's not that unbearable like it was before. Bo has dropped quite a bit since my last tier list. Lower ranked and trophy players worship Bo because he isn't hard to play and gets easy kills due to the mines. Well, top players within the game aren't easily fooled by running into the Bo mines. After I called out the peak diamond Bo mains from the last video, I didn't get any more comments about him, so it worked. The bulldozer is still near the bottom of the meta. Bo's short attack range forces him to be played in niche scenarios with walls and bushes so he can charge up his super. At least if you have Bo's hypercharge, that can help you survive a little bit longer as you charge towards the enemies. Now, if you want to talk about getting bulldozed, Ems gets bulldozed in this meta. Granted, yes, you have your super and your friend zoner gadgets to fend off against aggro brawlers, but once you run out of gadgets, you're cooked. Now, she can be good at the mid-range as long as she can keep the enemies there. If not, Ems is not going to be having too much fun inside of Brawl Stars. I'm so happy that I get to rank the 8-year-old's favorite brawler this low in the tier list. I'm tired of having a Power 9 Edgar on my team when I'm in Legendary. Like, why are you playing Edgar on Shooting Star, bro? I speak on behalf of everybody that has ever had a terrible Edgar teammate to please stop playing this brawler in rank. Buzz being this low is going to shock so many people. Buzz has seen a fall off recently because he just doesn't really have too high of a pick rate inside of higher ranked matches. It's not like Buzz got nerfed and that hurt him, but it's just that the top meta brawlers can either counter Buzz or they are just better versions of Buzz. I got so many comments from peak diamond players saying that Buzz is good, like it was actually insane. With the addition of Shade, Hank is actually not bad now. Hank can be decent in very niche scenarios to hit throwers or enemies in general that are hiding behind walls. Even though he now has the tank trait thanks to the recent set of balance changes, he is still going to struggle finding any sort of value in higher ranked matches. The fall off of Fang needs to be studied. He used to be one of the strongest and most brain dead brawlers to play when he had his hypercharge. It was just press purple button, spam yellow and red button, and sometimes hit green button. Thankfully, Fang is so much weaker now and not breaking the game like he used to. Just like Clancy, Mo has taken a huge fall off in the meta. Mo was getting constant nerfs after nerfs every update, but he was absolutely killed. With all the recent nerfs, he is now extremely weak, does less damage, struggles to charge his super, and has seen a huge decrease in pick rate and win rate inside of rank. Thank God the Mo meta is done because that went on for way too long. Now, the next brawler we're going to be talking about is going to be BB. BB has been such a confusing brawler for me. Like, yes, the knockback is great to disarm the enemy or whatever, but you are literally knocking the enemy out of your own attack range like it's the most counterproductive thing I've seen in this game. Coming in at the worst thrower in the game is going to be Grom. Grom is another thrower that isn't that good because his shots are easy to dodge. Pros and experienced players in general don't have many problems dodging Grom's main attacks since they always split in a plus sign. Grom is easily considered to be the worst thrower in the entire game. Spike in this spot will definitely shock a lot of you out there watching. If you think about it, Spike is extremely overrated. He can deal a lot of damage, sure, but pros don't have problems dodging Spike's attacks or dodging curveball as well. He's a fairly easy brawler to play, so he's a favorite amongst lower skilled players. The brawler everybody gets when starting Brawl Stars is Shelly. Shelly can be a good pick on bushy maps like Snake Prairie, where you need to counter tanks you are more than likely going to be facing. But other than that, you won't ever be seeing Shelly unless you're in like Silver or something. If it wasn't for that map, Shelly might be even lower in this list. Meg has definitely fallen way out of the meta as of late. Her nerfs that she received recently played a huge part in that, but she can still be pretty good to play. Her mech form is still a force to be reckoned with, but once you destroy that mech and leave Meg in her puny form, yeah, she's completely useless. Brock is very underwhelming in this meta. Brock has a shorter attack range compared to other snipers, his super can be hit or miss literally, and he really lacks in health. The thing that is definitely hurting Grom the most is that the pros and experienced players don't have any problems dodging his shots, like it's so extremely slow. The King of Heist is unfortunately the only game mode he is viable in. Chuck is fun to play because he dominates inside of Heist, but other than that, you aren't going to be seeing him too much. Players are smart enough to ban Chuck every time you get Heist in rank, so if you don't see him in Heist, you aren't going to be seeing him anywhere. B keeps falling lower and lower every time I make one of these videos. B is a good brawler to deal with tanks since she can deal a lot of damage, but her lack of health and 4k shots alternating every other attack makes for an inconsistent damage output. B is just not a popular pick at all amongst the pros and in higher rank matches. Our next long range brawler is going to be Nani. Nani is probably the most skilled sharpshooter in the game and for good reason. Her unique main attacks take a lot of skill to constantly hit all 3 orbs, but it's very rewarding when you can connect. Most players can't play Nani that well due to the high skill cap, but she is only good in specific game modes. The slowest brawler in the game is not doing too good right now, with 8-Bit being the slowest brawler in the game, and that is his biggest downside. He's only seen in niche scenarios and certain game modes, making him kind of rare to see in high rank matches. With how underwhelming the hypercharge is as well, it doesn't help 8-Bit at all in the current meta. Jackie is another tank like Bull who is just overall weak. She is just a slightly better version of Doug since her attack range is a bit longer, but it is still not enough. She relies heavily on her pneumatic booster gadgets and hypercharge in order to get within range of the opponent. If she can't, she's gonna really struggle throughout the match. Coming in at the worst healer in the game is going to be Pam. Pam isn't seeing a lot of time in the spotlight since her scrap metals are fairly inconsistent and don't guarantee you a lot of damage unless you're at a point blank range. Her healing station also doesn't stay alive for too long with how strong and annoying throwers are in the meta right now. Mr. P is another brawler that is struggling in this meta. Mr. P is absolutely atrocious in this meta since he gets run down more than anybody in the game. Granted, he can be good to counter single projectile brawlers with the porters, but that is in niche scenarios. Other than that, he will get curb stomped by the S tier brawlers. The 8-year-old Leon mains are going to come at me for placing Leon this low. Leon is another brawler that isn't as strong as people think. Ever since the nerf to his proximity damage, that has caused Leon a decrease in his damage at max range and a decrease in his supercharge rate as well. Chester just keeps on dropping in these ranking videos for the past couple of months. Even though his health and star power got nerfed in October, he still has the potential to burst down enemies within 3 shots. His RNG still makes him frustrating to play since it's inconsistent, and he's just overall not that good right now. Lily has fallen off so hard and I'm here for it. Lily has been such a frustrating brawler to face the past couple of months ever since they gave her an extra bar ammo, like why? Of course her vanish gadget is still no skill to use, but at this point many players expect it and are ready to burst down Lily when she exits the Shadow Realm. Carl is another brawler that dropped off a bit. It's not like there were balance changes to hurt Carl in the meta, but with all the brawlers now at the top of the meta, they are either just hard matchups for Carl, or they counter him completely. Without a hypercharge, he is going to continue to slowly drop lower and lower in these rankings. Colt is so good in Heist, but that's pretty much it. He is a higher skill cap brawler to play, but if you can land most of your bullets every time, he can shred. Colt can be a nasty brawler but only within the right hands. With his hypercharge, reload gear, and speed loader gadget, you can melt that safe in no time. Jessie is a brawler that can be a reliable mid because of her turret, decent range, and her bounce shots. However, with her low damage output and top brawlers in the current meta, she can't really deal the amount of damage needed to stand her ground. Unfortunately, Jessie has fallen off quite a bit since the last tier list. Next thrower we're going to be talking about is going to be Dynamite. Dyna is probably the most skilled thrower in the game if you can utilize Dyna jump to its maximum potential. However, with how strong throwers like Juju and Barry and the twins are right now, they just completely overshadow Dyna. They are easier to play and are just more consistent with stronger kits, which sucks for Dyna enthusiasts. Sam has actually made a decent jump up in this tier list. Sam can be somewhat useful in some situations since a lot of maps cater to Sam's kit. A lot of the maps are closed off with lots of walls and bushes, making Sam kind of a sleeper pick. He is still in the C tier, so it's not like he's really good right now, but he did make quite the jump since the last tier list. My favorite brawler has unfortunately taken a huge fall off since the last ranking. Byron really struggles in the current meta with all the new hypercharges and rise of multiple brawlers that either counter Byron or has a favorable matchup against him. I'm sad Byron isn't near the top, but he had a good amount of time near the top, so it's all good. Rosa has seen a slight rise in the current meta. Rosa, just like Sam, has seen a slight increase in play rate and win rate since a lot of the maps do cater to tanks and assassins right now. She does sit at the top of the C tier, so it's not like she's super good, but just a bit more viable in the right situations. Tara has taken a massive fall off in the current meta. Tara used to be such a good brawl in the right situation, especially as a late pick on bushy maps. Her super was pretty good because it could easily turn the tides of the game within an instant, which was amazing. However, just like Byron, with the new rise of other brawlers, like Tara has just not been that popular recently. Mortis has fallen off a lot since the last tier list. Mortis is completely brain dead to play as long as you have his hypercharge. However, he gets popped and countered pretty easily by a lot of the S tier and A tier brawlers in the current meta, so Mortis is definitely not as dominant against the new top brawlers who are dominating the game. Clancy has finally fallen out of the meta drastically. Clancy has been receiving constant nerfs every balance change, but the recent ones have really killed him. He is now extremely weak, does less damage, and isn't that much of a threat at his third stage. Clancy has seen a decline in pick rate inside of ranked and out of the meta in general, which was long overdue. Now, Shade is actually super overrated. Everybody was overhyping Shade because he can go through walls, attack through walls, walk on water, and he has the supercharged trait. However, with his attack delay and shorter attack range, he can be outranged quite a bit and have a difficult time connecting his shots. Especially in higher ranked matches, these players know how to counter Shade with ease. Cordelius has always been a good brawler, and even though he isn't in the S tier, there is no doubt that he can still be a great counter to anybody in the game with his hypercharge. His super can isolate a broken brawler in that shadow room for a while, so Cordelius can reposition himself and surprise the enemies. Willow has shockingly seen a rise since the last tier list. I know I was pretty mean to Willow the last couple rankings, and I will admit that. I mean, she can be an okay pick now thanks to the increase in her main attack radius that makes her shots easier to hit, but she needs a hypercharge or something to help her out a lot more. Melody and her hypercharge has definitely helped her out in the current meta. She is now the queen of heists and she can deal so much more damage onto the heist save. I thought in the last ranking that Melody would be seen a lot more outside of heist, but that's not the case at all. She is still mostly seen in heist, and that's why this ranking is definitely more realistic for Melody. Even though Mandy got all those balance changes a couple of months ago, she has taken a huge fall off recently. Regardless, Mandy is a decent marksman to play in the current meta. She is a tricky brawler since you need to understand when to stand still and when to move, so only really skilled players can utilize and execute well with Mandy. Lola is definitely one of my favorite underrated brawlers in the game. Lola can actually be not bad since her clones help double her DPS, and that can help her shred down the enemies quite quickly. You can even use the clone to tank shots for Lola to help her stay alive. I mean, it's pretty useful. Lola is definitely a sleeper pick inside of rank. The most brain dead brawler in the game is going to be Kit. Kit is a brawler that takes absolutely no skill to play. Regardless, he is the goat of heist, especially in Bridge Too Far. And if you play Kit in Bridge Too Far, you will have a 100% win rate. But in all seriousness, this brawler is good when you can play in comps like Garo Kit or Melody Kit. Gale keeps on getting worse and worse in every tier list. Gale's supercharge rate and his hypercharge charge rate were all decreased, hurting his popularity in the meta. It's not like anything drastic has happened since those changes, but he just doesn't counter the new top brawlers in the game, so he's not as viable. Griff has seen a rise since the last tier list ranking. With the rise of all these other brawlers thanks to them getting hypercharges or buffs, Griff can be a decent counter to these specific brawlers. With his pretty high damage output at close ranges, Griff can be seen a little bit more in a competitive draft setting. Another thrower that's annoying is going to be Tick. Tick is a brawler that really sucks the life out of you because of how spammy and annoying he is. Facing Tick makes me want to pull my hair out, but if you can get within close proximity, he is going to get cooked. There are still some better throwers to play in this very aggressive meta. Ruffs this low is probably a huge shocker to a lot of you guys out there. Ruffs is an underrated brawler with his super to power up his teammates, and that can be great in mirror matchups to diff the enemy. His shots bouncing off of walls does give him more versatility, but his damage output is on the weaker side, and he can't fend off against aggro brawlers in this meta. Squeak has dropped off majorly since my last tier list. It's not like Squeak was nerfed or anything, but with the addition of new hypercharges and buffs to existing brawlers, Squeak is gonna struggle taking out all these new top meta brawlers. I guess it's for the better because facing Squeaks are just so annoying. Draco has seen a rise since my last ranking. He can be a decent counterpick to take down other tanks and assassins because of his super. He can use his last stand gadget to survive a little bit longer, and that can be the difference maker to taking down your target. He's still only seen in niche scenarios, but in those situations, he can be not bad. Buster is such an amazing late pick brawler in rank. Skilled Buster players can sneak around in bushes, pull enemies with the slow-mo replay gadget, and annihilate enemies within an instant. His super allows him to counter multi-projectile brawlers, so that's another reason why he can be a decent pick in the right situation. Sprout is now a little bit higher since the last video. Sprout can be a good thrower that can wall off choke points thanks to his super, which is pretty damn annoying. However, he isn't as dominant as the other throwers in the S and A tier, so it's like the other throwers that Sprout just gets overshadowed and is slightly easier to counter. Even though Sandy isn't S tier anymore, he is a really good control brawler. He can still use his sandstorm to cause huge pressure onto the enemies, and combined this with his hypercharge, the pressure is immense. Sandy will still struggle a bit in this meta in a 1v1 against S tier brawlers because of his damage output, but he can shine in the right comp. Kenji keeps on falling off with every update. Decreasing his reload speed is something I've been begging for so long, and even though that nerf didn't hurt Kenji as much as Mo and Clancy, I mean it still did hurt him. However, he is still pretty annoying to deal with since he can deal a lot of damage and dodge huge amounts of damage with his super. Crow has seen a slight rise since my last ranking video. Crow's kit is pretty weak stat wise, but he's still very toxic to face literally and figuratively. He can still be good at scouting bushes and be annoying with his poison. The hypercharge is pretty much only useful in heists, which is definitely helping Crow's placement in this video. Colette is still going to be a strong anti-tank brawler in the game. Colette is pretty versatile that can be played in a lot of different game modes, but you're mostly going to see her in heists, right? This is mostly because of how much damage she can deal with her hypercharged super. Overall, anytime you see a tank, you can run Colette and completely shred them down, no problem. Bella's a great long-range sharpshooter and has been for a long time. Bella's always been a reliable and consistent brawler since her kit and mechanics are simple to understand and master. Granted, her hypercharge isn't the flashiest, but it does get the job done and the stat buffs help out Belle quite a bit. Poco is shotting up a bit since my last tier list. Poco can be super toxic to face on game modes like Hot Zone since he can do a pretty good job keeping his teammates alive. With his hypercharge, the additional shield does help him out a little bit, and at least that's something. It may not be the greatest hypercharge, but it does help Poco become a better support brawler. Janet has seen a rise thanks to her new hypercharge. Her new hypercharge has fixed one of the biggest problems with her super, and now she has free range of where she wants to drop her bombs. This makes her a bit more useful and viable inside of rank, but don't tell the Janet simps I said that. Pearl has always been pretty consistent since her release. Pearl's super and hypercharge are pretty underwhelming unless facing aggro brawlers, but what makes her good is her overcooked gadget. Using this gadget to deal huge amounts of damage at a max heat bar is definitely what makes Pearl scary to face. Surge has fallen off a lot since his health was nerfed. Surge isn't as effective at countering top brawlers in the game, and the new top brawlers have a much fairer shot at dealing with Surge. With the health nerf, it makes it that much harder for Surge to stay alive, but I'm sure people aren't disappointed with the slight fall off of Surge. Gus, just like Surge, has seen quite the fall off. He can still be good as a long-range support brawler, but his DPS just can't withstand how aggressive the new meta is. Just like the fall off of Byron, these brawlers just can't stand their ground as much even though nothing to their kits have been nerfed. I guess it's about time with how long Gus was meta, like it was overdue. Gray has seen a rise thanks to his new hypercharge. People are going to be raging in the comments saying that Gray should be higher because the hypercharge is so good, but realistically, Masters rank players will still have a harder time hitting their shots and charging up that hypercharge in the first place. You could definitely rank Gray higher when being played with the right comp. Piper is still one of the best snipers in the entire game. Piper has shotten up ever since receiving her hypercharge because that allows Piper to not be so two-dimensional and be more versatile. As long as you can keep the enemies at max range and do the most amount of damage possible, you're gonna pick the enemies apart. Next up, we got Penny. Realistically, Penny after her main attack range buff has been extremely good because now she can hang with other mid-range brawlers much easier. With the help of Penny's new hypercharge, that has helped Penny become even stronger in the meta, and that makes her so much more annoying to deal with on control-oriented game modes. Gene is such a good brawler for many different reasons. He has great scouting because of his projectile splitting, and combining this with the vision gear is nasty. Of course, he arguably has one of the best supers in the game because of his magic hand that can yank enemies towards him to turn the tides of the game instantly. Daryl has dropped off a good amount since his December tier list. He struggles a little bit more with standing his ground with the new hypercharges and buffs to these other top brawlers that he has more counters now. Daryl is still really good, don't get me wrong, because of his versatility, but there are just more brawlers that can put up a fight against Daryl now. Rico remains as such a strong brawler within the meta. Rico is a brawler that works so well in this meta not only because he is pretty strong, but his kit fits so well in the current map pool. So many maps, no matter the game mode, have walls that Rico can use his projectiles to bounce off of, and that easily makes him a top pick every time. Barley is still such a solid thrower in the current meta. Barley's hypercharge and super help him maintain control and lock down choke points with ease. He can be extremely frustrating to deal with if you can't take him down quickly, but I'm glad Barley is finally getting some time in the spotlight. Frank still remains in the A tier. Frank with his high health and hypercharge are some of the things that help Frank in the current meta. Also, his quick unload speed when he is low on health is great when combined with the damage gear and his power grab star power. It can be a scary sight to see when dealing with Frank. Angelo is another really strong sharpshooter in the game. Now, Angelo is easily considered to be the best marksman in all of Brawl Stars. He can deal so much damage with his main attack plus his super. Granted, it is very high risk, high reward since you need to charge up his attacks, but good Angelo players are absolutely deadly to face. Shockingly, Ash is going to be ranked this high in the tier list. Ash with his new hypercharge has helped him do more damage and charge up his next super with the additional rat porters. With the stat buffs, this can make Ash a lot scarier to face, but he still needs to be picked very wisely since he does have some counters out there. Otis was definitely underrated in my last tier list, I can't lie. Otis can be a pretty good counter to any brawler thanks to his super. He can also deal a decent amount of damage per second with his main attack, helping him shred down anybody. With Otis now having his hypercharge, he's going to be even more annoying to deal with, so go ahead and buy it. El Primo's probably going to be the biggest shock throughout this entire ranking, but hear me out. Primo is a good brawler now because he is a solid counter to other tanks that are stronger now, such as Ash, Frank, and Daryl. El Primo can be a great counter pick in a draft setting, and with the rise of other tanks, Primo is finally closing in near the top 10 in the meta. The twins are still pretty good after their 1 million nerfs. Like, how is that still possible? Larry is still super annoying to deal with because it's like having another brawler in the field, but Larry's main attacks are what makes him extremely toxic. When is Supercell gonna give the twins the Charlie treatment? Like, what are they doing, man? RT is a shocking one that has seen a constant rise for months now. His marks can help your teammates get kills quicker, and his super is now a great way to counter aggressive brawlers since you can easily burst them down when you are split. Another thing that really helped him is now he can walk over water. Like, that's crazy. Amber hasn't really moved that much since my last ranking video. Amber is a great brawler because she isn't that difficult to play as well. She is a very auto-aim friendly brawler, but she is useful to teach amateur players about ammo consumption. She can still be useful to maintaining area control thanks to her oil and dealing that burning damage to opponents when lit. One of my favorite picks inside of ranked is actually Nita. Nita is a great counter to brawlers like Daryl and Mortis because of her bear. Bruce allows Nita to hide behind him to tank shots and heal each other up when running bear with me. Other than that, she is still a great brawler to run in heist thanks to her hyper bear and her hypercharge. Eve with her brand new hypercharge puts her at the top of the A tier. That hypercharge constantly spitting out hatchlings is unbelievably annoying that helps Eve cause pressure and maintain control of the map. With how strong brawlers that can walk on water are in the meta, it's not a shock really that Eve is also ranked this high in this tier list. The newest brawler Meeple is cracking the S tier in this ranking. People are gonna comment saying that this is a huge overrating, but the potential with Meeple is endless. He is such a great kit that is great for control-oriented game modes and can be such a great brawler to give your team the upper hand most of the time. Don't sleep on Meeple, he is extremely strong in the current meta. Maisie this high is probably another shocker to a lot of you out there. Maisie has been receiving constant buffs since June, but the recent one that increased her main attack damage has helped her rise into the S tier. Even though her shots can be tough to get used to, she can still be a really good brawler to play inside of rank since she can counter a lot of brawlers in the meta. Max is still one of the best support brawlers in the game. Pairing up her hypercharge with any brawler in the game automatically makes the team that much scarier to face. Max is a brawler that needs good teammates to succeed, but if you are really good with Max, you can definitely carry your team to victory. Stu is so broken right now. Stu has the easiest super to charge in the entire game, and that allows him to make some sneaky plays. His ability to double, triple, or even quadruple dash makes him extremely versatile and frustrating to face when you can't hit your shots onto him. His hypercharges also helped him rise in the meta, no doubt. Lou this high is actually insane, but here's why. The recent buff to his reload speed has made Lou so incredibly strong now. I mean, anytime a brawler gets an increase in their reload speed, it automatically makes them way better because reload speed is so important inside of Brawl Stars. Lou is more viable now and easily becomes one of the best brawlers to play inside of singular hot zone maps. Barry is so strong right now thanks to his brand new hypercharge. Barry was already annoying before the hypercharge, but now his super is stronger than ever. He can heal up his teammates, deal huge amounts of damage, and cover more area on the map that makes it more of a hellhole for the enemy team to do anything. This meta is going to be so annoying with Barry being this strong, just watch. Coming in at the second best brawl in the game is going to be Juju. I always see mixed opinions about Juju, saying that she's pretty balanced or that she's broken, but if you've never faced a really good Juju player, you have no idea how strong this brawler truly is. Gregory is still so broken, and with Juju's unique main attacks, it helps make her versatile basically anywhere. Now, is it a shock to anybody that Buzz Lightyear is the best brawler in the entire game? Even though he can't be played in ranked, he's still the most broken brawler in the current meta. This tier list is based around competitive drafts inside of ranked and drafts among the pros, but I gotta just include Buzz Lightyear as a bonus since he won't be in my tier list next month. Well, there you guys go, a complete picture of the entire ranking. Go ahead and take a picture and let me know what you guys think in the comments down below. I'm ready to debate all the peak mythic players in the comments down below, so bring it on.